Cheating Death podcast is a satirical program containing objective information about anything and everything from under the sun. We are not political, nor are we religious. We are merely analytical and perhaps a bit prodigious. This is a moment in time in which we find ourselves asking questions that there may not be answers to. However, you have chosen your destiny, and this is why you are now listening to the Cheating Death podcast. On today's episode of the Cheating Death podcast, we get into the Soviet Union, Part 1. We also provide you with an all-new Annihilation Announcement, a new joke of the episode, an all-brand-new 5 list of the refreshing beverages, as well as we provide some commentary and insight on the differences between the socio-economic infrastructure of the Soviet Union of the latter time versus exactly how it was formed. This is part 1 of a multiple-part series of the Soviet Union, dear listeners, as there is far too much information to put into one episode. However, we would like to encourage you to follow Instagram.com/backroomcomedyclub for some top-tier capitalist comedy, as well as follow some of the legendary comedians within the confines of the Backrooms Comedy Club in Toronto proper. Give Darren Burke, Alex Burke, Damon Charles, Nicole Rhiannon, as well as a lot more within the links in the episodes in the podcast description. Follow all of their social media so you can get top-tier funny content each and every single day. Visit on over to the W Burger Bar, 10 College Street, for a snack and a treat, as well as find yourself an opportunity to go and get yourself a refreshing beverage today, for it is a lovely time for you to treat yourself. There are many questions we ask ourselves, but the answers are always right in front of us. Given the nature and the dynamics of the socioeconomic circumstances, you owe it to yourself to give yourself a beautiful day. And remember to follow the Cleric of Chaos at youtube.com/@clericofchaos. Follow us on all of our social medias, and if you are so inclined, you can buy yourself some merchandise, purchase a cameo, and much, much more. The links in the episodes and podcast description. You know by now, dear listener, that there is no escape from mediocrity unless you yourself challenge it. So grab yourself an iced coffee, put your feet up on that table, and let us tell you how you can cheat death. This is your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this is your Annihilation Announcement. Ask yourself when the last time you were persecuted for your thoughts, your opinions, as well as your way of life. When? Who? why, how, and if applicable, where. It is almost impossible to understand exactly how the restrictions of one's thoughts and opinions can ultimately impact one individual's way of life, their way of existing, their way of functioning on a daily basis. For you see, having the freedom of thinking in a way that you choose to think, regardless of whether or not free will exists, through the act of neurons not being able to involuntarily fire or not fire at all, we take for granted the very opportunities that we have within ourselves to truly believe and identify exactly what points of contention err within. We give ourselves no chance to deliberate or to debate. We ultimately rush into decisions on a regular basis, very, very frequently, which leads to numerous opportunities and obstacles that are only created and manifested by the ultimate desires and or dreams that we may or may not have. This is a rare opportunity for one to look inside oneself introspectively and see exactly what they contain, to see exactly what kind of errant issues may dwell within your attempt to complete an obstacle or a goal. We always wonder and find our ways to new heights, to new worlds, to new ways of thinking. But how is it that we get here? We give ourselves an opportunity to learn, to configure, and to grow. Given how climate works on a regular basis, especially within the socioeconomic type, there are plenty of opportunities for us to see exactly what we may or may not be doing wrong and move forward with correction. However, there are multitudes of people, legions, scores of individuals in whom ultimately are indeed afraid to choose how to think, to look towards a brighter tomorrow, to see exactly what it is that brings them to the proverbial table. We must not let ourselves down. We must think as positively and as cordially as we possibly can, dear listener. These elements that we have given ourselves, these obstacles, these barriers, these delays of instant gratification in each and every single situation, they must not be taken at face value. They must be identified, and they must be destroyed. When we give ourselves chances, we give ourselves hope. We try to see things for what they are, and we do our very, very best to move forward in a way that is not only beneficial to each and every single individual around us, but will ultimately take us to a new level, a new challenge, a new area of opportunity. So in the end, life in and of itself should become more arduous as time goes by. It should become more of a challenge. It should be more of a way of life in which we seek for ourselves. But, dear listener, we always ask, but do we ever provide ourselves with the answers that we deserve or that we earn? Very few take that challenge. But as we progress down the road of life, we understand that the world is an evil place. But we must do everything we can to add as much kindness as humanly possible. This has been your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this is your Annihilation Announcement. Willkommen, meine Freunde. Guten Morgen, guten Tage und eine gute Nacht. Ist deine Reisende und deine Ausländer, deine Allesfresser, deine Künstler, deine Schauspieler, deine Vernichter, deine Cleric of Chaos. Und ich bin frisch aus der Schwier. Ich tretest mit Tränen. Und ist deine Herz ist gebrochen. Und ich bin bereit, es fichern. Und heute ist eine schöne Tage. Dear listeners, we have a treat for you today, for today is part one of a multitude of parts as it pertains to the Soviet Union. Yes, we are talking about the very same Soviet Union, the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republic. a very large, expansive country that crossed continents to go forth and to make their sordid attempt to work towards building their perception of a brighter tomorrow. For you see, dear listeners, the Soviet Union was founded in 1922 under the Bolshevik regime of Vladimir Lenin, and finally to a point to where a lot of individuals were placed into a very difficult period. For you see, the Soviet Union did not formally begin in 1922, absolutely not. The Treaty of Creation, as some would call it, was put into place and ratified on the 30th of December 1922, therefore making the Soviet Union a semi-permanent fixture, and something that was not going away anytime soon. For you see, the October Revolution on the 7th of November 1917, in which was responsible for massacres, the deaths of numerous civilians, the utter displacement of the Romanov family, the execution of the former Tsar himself, leading to a new time of revolution, of industry, of intrigue, that they were hoping to take Russia and the Soviet Union states proper from being quote-unquote backwater peasant pedestrian to an overall time of where it would be competitive with the United States of America and all capitalist nations with respect to industry, technology, as well as the very nature of government itself. For you see, on the 30th of December 1922, when it was formally ratified and the Bolsheviks had seized control over the Soviet Union, this did not mean anything good for the denizens and the citizens of Russia and for the many areas in which the Soviet Union had occupied. During its height, the Soviet Union occupied 22,402,000 square kilometers. The amount of water in which they were responsible for was 2,767,198 kilometers proper. We look at the very height of what led to this particular calamity and what led to the reasons behind the federal communist state being placed into this particular position. But it is rather simple. The Russian people had had enough of the Romanov dynasty throughout the years and throughout the decades, and the leadership or lack thereof that followed within. The Romanov family did not do a very good job at easing national tension. They did not do a very good job at ensuring each and every single individual had a fair opportunity at reaching a brighter tomorrow. Absolutely not. For you see, the Romanovs were aristocratic. They were the very Eastern European equivalent of what one would consider the royal family, although obviously not directly affiliated with the lines of Windsor. They were in and of themselves an aristocracy that spanned decades and were responsible for some of the harshest famines and some of the absolute most brain-dead political decisions this side of the prime meridian. We ask ourselves, how is it that an entire society could be turned in such a specific and quote-unquote sick way, dear listeners? But to understand that, we have to look into the reason as to why the Soviet Union was predominantly laid upon the people, laying the roots down and seeing exactly what took place during the course of time. We need to know and understand that it was not as simple as most people had put it. No, it was a very complex and a very coordinated structure. And from 1922 to 1924, the leader of the Soviet Union was one Vladimir Lenin, an individual in whom had a bunch of insane, crazy, outlandish, but also, to him, practical and perfect ideas. But we, looking back through the hourglass of time and seeing exactly how history was manifested and created, understand that this is obviously not the case, that there were no absolutely happy moments or happy times within the Soviet Union proper. and upon Vladimir Lenin's death in 1924, what engaged and followed henceforth was an approximate 6-year power struggle, followed by executions, exile, destruction, the conquest of particular countries and situations, and which saw Joseph Stalin reach unparalleled and unprecedented power in 1930. What happened if you crossed Joseph Stalin was not only necessarily the death or the exile of your particular person, but your family and generations afterward. If you crossed Joseph Stalin in the wrong way, dear listener, note that there is a risk that you may be purged completely, erased, eradicated, destroyed from any history books, any educational resources, and any memories of you would be gone. From 1930 through 1940, Joseph Stalin did everything that he possibly could to build an insurmountable empire, not even joining World War II until parts of the latter area, as he did not want anything to distract from the destiny that he felt the Soviet Union was going to face. Some of the calamities that were caused in World War II via the Germans were so horrible that the Soviet Union at which point decided to align with America and march on Berlin proper themselves. After this particular tenuous and tension-filled relationship was complete, we are fully aware of what comes after World War II. But between 1930 and 1940, millions passed away, the Holodomor Holocaust, in which millions were starved to death, and the proper Holocaust itself, as most would call it, from 1933 through 1945 in the labor camps in Auschwitz, Birkenau, and many other places. It was identified quite clearly and quite specifically how exactly this was expected to be run. No individual had freedom. No individual had the choice to do as they wished with their lives, for everything was for the establishment. Everything was for the Soviet Union, and with the Holodomor and with the Holocaust themselves, there are no innocent parties within the confines of the Soviet Union. We must look towards the mistakes in which the Soviet Union made, and we must ensure that they do not transpire any further. But, dear listener, providing yourself more insight and intrigue as to how the Soviet Union functioned in World War II, as well as during the Korean War, and the battle to which led to Khrushchev taking upon the leadership. We will provide you with more context and more insight as the parts continue. This concludes part 1 of the Soviet Union, and dear listeners, we want to take your opportunity and give it to you in droves, in spades, and give you chances and tools to build for a brighter tomorrow. For if we were a part of the Soviet Union, this would not be possible. Until next time, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in today. Take care of yourselves and each other. Today's joke has been brought to you by the Cleric of Chaos. Some people call each other good judges of character. Well, it is quite bizarre because the vast majority of these individuals who are placed with this statement, they don't even have a law degree. At the top of today's episode, we promised you a list of the top 5 refreshing beverages one could have in a warm climate or in their happy times. Coming in at number 5, we have ice cold lemonade. Coming in at number 4, we have raspberry sours. Coming in at number 3, we of course have the lovely tall cans of Pilsner, Lager, or any type of beer that you prefer. Coming in at number 2, we have the ever so lovely orange juice. And coming in at number 1, we have tequila-based cocktails, specifically blue curacao-infused tequila fish bowls. What are your top 5 favorite refreshing beverages? Email us at thecheatydeathpodcast@gmail.com or comment in the video below. The Soviet Union, a very unique debacle upon humanity. A way for individuals to perpetuate control in a way that was not easily or readily defeatable, the borders of which took over vast quantities of Eurasia, finding ways to reach the Bolshevik way through numerous countries, numerous areas of the continent, and it was put forth that there were no options for insubordination. You make it so that these entities, these conglomerates, these individuals operating as a functional union of sorts were the judges, the juries, and the executioners of any naysayers, of any ne'er-do-wells, or any individuals in whom spoke out against the various establishments that were responsible for putting together the Union of the Soviets. We take for granted today how lovely the perceived and projected freedom that we all enjoy is. But at the end of the day, what are we really doing with that information? How is it that we are finding ourselves in positions that we had not found ourselves in before when it comes to wars of the mind, or when it comes to an identification of each and every specific situation that we could once work with together? But now, we find ourselves in a world where even if we have a group of people, or a large group of people, that the clandestine efforts by our various state, federal, provincial, federal, and even to a certain degree international governments put upon the average soul, it is an arduous campaign of constant trying over and over and over and over again just to have someone understand and acknowledge the opportunities and struggles that we face as a species here. We do what we can to fight within the confines and the realms and the norms and the standards of what we see. However, is there really an opportunity for anyone within the Soviet Union to stand up, unite, and fight? The answer, unfortunately, most oftentimes, was no. You would have people in whom would try to stand up to the establishment, try to work towards a brighter tomorrow. Those times would lead to absolutely nothing but failure, exile, execution, and almost permanent imprisonment. We take for granted the very way, shapes, and forms that our lives lead. We do not find ourselves in a position to where we are being jailed specifically for our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors towards the Union itself, because we do not live in a communist empire unless you live in China or unless you live in Cuba, and both to which, quite frankly, neither are obsessed and insane to the degree as the Soviet Union was. One must take into consideration exactly how dark and how deep the proverbial rabbit hole of the Soviet Union goes. And when you understand the almost 70-year duration of this particular entity, you know that there was a reason why so many individuals were greedy, selfish, looking to seize power for themselves, and ultimately lead the Soviet Union into darker times. The lost casualties of the Soviet Union, we must remember, a lot of people did not choose their fate. A lot of individuals were forced into the very nature and in the dynamics of the Soviet Union itself. And we look towards a brighter tomorrow, remembering those lost souls and ensuring that we do not make the same mistakes. Until next time, dear listener, thank you for tuning in today. Take care of yourselves and each other. The Cheating Death Podcast is brought to you by Nacht and Leben, CRDVC, Cleric, Chaos, and where you can find all podcasts on all platforms. If you'd like to support the podcast, you may do so by purchasing merchandise, buying a cameo, or buying us a coffee at the links in the episode's description. Please subscribe to youtube.com/@Cleric of Chaos. We are trying to reach 100 subscribers before the end of the summer. Follow us on all of our social media, including Instagram, Twitter, as well as the ever so lovely YouTube itself, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and where you find all of your major programs. please support the Backroom Comedy Club at instagram.com/backroomcomedyclub, where they have shows 5 nights a week at 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Follow and subscribe to legendary comedians Alex Burke, Darren Burke, Damon Charles, Nicole Reineman, and many, many more. And the links in the episodes in the podcast description as well. And be sure, if you are going through a psychiatric calamity, a gambling abuse withdrawal, or substance abuse, domestic violence, or more, please visit the emergency telephone numbers listed within the podcast and in the episode's description as well. You looking for a playful puppy or a cute kitten, please visit your local animal adoption rescue center, for they are in dire need of your support. And remember to visit yummypets.com/voice. Click the button each and every single day so animals within shelter environments have an opportunity to receive 330 pounds of free kibble at the end of every month. And remember to follow our friends at the W Burger Bar at 10 College Street in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. with great deals starting at just $9.99 for their lunch specials, $6.50 for their happy hour specials, and $9.99 fish bowls and $6.99 frozen cocktails. And visit Dundas Shawarma at 768 Dundas Street West for some of the best pizza and shawarma in town. And you, dear listener, you always ask yourself exactly what more you can do to maximize the potential of each and every single day. Just look in the mirror and see that you could find your own way. Believe in yourself. And remember, we're pulling for you. We're all in this together.